Uh, I am back. Once again, my name is Mr. Wayne, and we are going to proceed from where we left last time when we were talking about terrorism investigative strategies, where we saw that it is quite a lengthy process, and for the investigator, you have to identify individuals or groups who are likely to use terrorism to attain their goals. You have to study the community, you have to cooperate with the international community, and then also you have to go back to people who reside in these areas in the community to try and get information and leads to uncovering the menace of terrorism. Now, we are going to turn our attention to counterterrorism protective security. Counterterrorism protective security. And here we shall be talking about actions. We shall be talking about actions, what you should know or what you should do as a security professional. Either you are a security officer, you are a security supervisor, you are a security manager, you are a police officer, you are a military officer. There are some actions that must be done, specifically when you join the corporate world. When you join the corporate world, there are some specifics that must be done to protect the facilities, to protect your organization against the threat of terrorism. And then, number one is ensuring that counter-terrorism protective security measures are built in at the design stage and not bolted on afterwards. So these measures should be built in. For example, environmental design, for example, window glazing, for example, standoff distance. This can only be achieved during construction. And during construction of buildings, there are usually security experts or security consultants who are invited by the engineers who are constructing a particular facility to provide specific information related to counterterrorism. Number two, ensuring standard baseline security measures are in place and the physical security is optimized. I earlier spoke about baseline security measures. Baseline security measures are at the starting point. Gates, perimeter, electric fence, security guards, CCTV surveillance. These are what we call basic security measures. Baseline or basic security measures are in place and the physical security is optimized, improved, or enhanced. In this regard, access control and surveillance are particularly important. Gentlemen, join us in the future and just let us learn about access control management and the systems that are used to control access, because access is very important to you as a security professional. If you are able to control access, it means you are able to control who is coming in, which vehicle is coming in, which material is coming in, who is leaving the premises, which vehicle is leaving the premises, which material is leaving the premises. Access control is very important to the security. And then baseline level of security, which is audited regularly auditing. So auditing is to check, to carry out an assessment to ensure that the system is effective or the system is working accordingly. Also, some baseline level of security include good physical security, detection, delays, response measure to disrupt, etc. And this may include surveillance. There's a physical surveillance by human beings, and there's a physical surveillance by systems. Personnel security, security procedures, security focal points, notices, access management, access points to a minimum, clear differentiation between public and the private areas, security operating levels, key and parking control, information security, etc. Do you have protection in depth? Do you have early detection at your premises? Think about that. I will give you a minute to note this down because this is very important to what we are discussing today. So please take a minute, note this baseline level of security, note these measures down. Note those measures down. Those are some of the baseline security measures. So effective today, as a security professional, keep in mind that there is what we call baseline level of security or baseline security measures. These are the usual normal security measures. Speak this language. And then when we still talk about terrorism, uh, uh, counter-terrorism protective measures, ensure there is a good operational security. Protect information relating to day-to-day activities. In isolation, information may have little value, but for a terrorist adversary, each piece of information is a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. What when recruiting staff or contractors, check identities and follow up references. Check identities and follow up references, ensuring that important human assets are protected accordingly. Pay attention to what information is posted where about key staff and their activities and movements. This is your work, you as a security manager, you as a security supervisor in your particular organization. And then ensure that you have intelligence about the local terrorist threat. For example, in our setting, we must have intelligence about the Al-Shabaab terrorist groups. Even if you are in the private sector, you must have this information. You may be able to get some information from your local security services, and there are excellent analysis and intelligence companies that produce high quality intelligence assessment. Mainly in our republic, rely on the police from information from the police, rely from information from our external partners like the US Embassy, like the United Kingdom, rely on this information. So gather intelligence, know what kind of threat is existing. Al-Shabaab is our enemy, and how are they able to radicalize people? How are they able to recruit even normal Kenyan citizens to take part in acts of terrorism, like it happened at Dusit? And then threat assessment. You should also be able to conduct threat assessment. I would like to teach you again in the future about threat assessment. Develop a threat assessment to be able to carry out a credible risk analysis. Ensure operational resilience and good business contingency to cope with the impact of a terrorist attack. A vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, for example, has a very large radius of destruction. When a truck bomb exploded in Manchester in 1996, it was estimated that over 600 businesses were affected by the event. Many of these did not resume trading. Remember Westgate and Dusit attacks. They have never recovered business. Westgate and Dusit attack. Okay, Westgate is back a little bit, but it will never be where it was. It will never be the Westgate that we knew. Dusit, I think they even closed. I'm not very sure, but find out what happened to Dusit D2. So you see, these attacks, it is better for us to prevent them than to wait until we investigate them. Because even when we investigate them, already we have lost life, already damages has been done, already businesses, the economy has been affected, people are out of business and such kind of things. So it is important for us to focus on prevention, And then plans should be rehearsed and exercised. In most organizations, they don't exercise. They don't do these exercises and they don't do these rehearsals. Ensuring good physical resilience. So it is you as a security manager when you join this corporate world to ensure that the plans are rehearsed and exercised. A basic principle in vehicle-borne improvised explosive device defense is to keep unsearched vehicles as far away from buildings as possible and harden the facility against the projected residual blast pressures. So if your perimeter is big and the gate is too close to the building, then you may have to advise the management, we need to push this vehicle search area a little bit to create a standoff distance. If it is within 30 meters, the standard is the standard is that the perimeter should not be within 30 meters to the wall building, to the external of the building, should be beyond 30 meters. So those are some of the things that you also need to keep in mind. Staff training. Staff training, ensuring that staff are aware and trained. Security awareness should be part of organizational culture. Staff are organizational eyes and ears and first responders if a device detonates without warning. Sensitize staff to the threat of terrorism. This is more than just looking out for suspicious objects and extends to suspicious behavior and unusual inquiries. I mentioned also during the webinar for those who attended that adding value is of great importance to you as a security profession. And adding value, you can add value just by training staff, conducting training. It will come to the attention of the management that at least you are adding value. Train staff. Because if you look at the budgets in most organizations, training consumes a lot of budget. And if we are able to do internal trainings because we have effective security managers, because we have effective security supervisors, then we don't need to, company doesn't need to spend money to hire external trainers again. So you will be adding value to your organization. Please remember, training of staff and play a role. Security staff should be aware of the indicators of hostile reconnaissance and should be trained in searching and ID recognition and should know how to respond to an incident. Hostile reconnaissance is the stage whereby terrorists are gathering intelligence about your enterprise or your facility or your organization. Awareness training should be extended to other contractors. There is a publication of UK which specifically draws attention to concessionaires, cleaning and maintenance staff, the vigilance of whom is essential to ensuring good security. This should extend to what to do in the event of a no warning explosion. So, training of staff. Another measure, I hope you're listing them as we move down. Security operating and alert levels. Ensure a system of security operating and alert states, at least the national level states, where such information is made public. Ensure an emergency plan capable of addressing credible terrorism scenarios. Ensure the exterior and the interior design, layout, partitions, staff desk, and staff desk orientation, address letter, etc. Minimize rather than maximize the risk of injury to staff. Minimize rather than maximize the risk of injury to staff. Another measure is to conduct a risk and vulnerability analysis. Determine the conceivable terrorism scenarios that you might become a victim of. Assess to threat assessment information. Don't consider terrorism as a single threat, but analyze different scenarios such as a person, suicide attack, postal device, etc. Take into account the possibility also of an indirect attack. Is the facility in the blast wave envelope of a vehicle-borne improvised device attack on a nearby facility? For example, is the facility near a high-risk foreign embassy or important government building? Is there an iconic target nearby? One of the factors that influence the terrorism risk analysis procedure is a target attractiveness. Target attractiveness. So those, if you are working in an organization that is near to embassies that could be under attack, then you have to always be on high alert, because we say terrorists might find it difficult to access that facility, and then they choose your facility as the other option. So you have to consider being very vigilant and increasing your security levels, especially if you are located near very sensitive embassies and commissions. And then adversary viewpoint. Examine the facility and the operations from the viewpoint of the adversary. Look from the outside in. What operational security or vulnerability intelligence could an outsider glean from carrying out hostile reconnaissance of the facility? Viewpoint is from which points can an enemy carry out intelligence gathering on your facility. And then also, what is posted about the facility on the internet? You as a security manager, you have to check this. How cautious are staff when taking telephone inquiries? You have also to do research on this. How accessible is the facility to outsiders? How accessible is the facility to outsiders? And one of the factors that influence terrorism risk analysis process is target accessibility. Consider the insider threat, staff background checks, contractors, including security contractors, conduct exercises to test alertness, detection, capability, and penetration vulnerability. Good housekeeping. Good housekeeping. Good housekeeping reduces opportunities for bombers to hide devices where they might remain unobserved and helps reduce false alarms. If an area is cluttered or untidy, unattended, items that could otherwise appear suspicious will be less easy to notice. The likelihood of staff detecting unattended items increases if they are trained, aware, and willing to identify and report such items. So we go back to training of staff. Training of staff, I cannot emphasize more on that. It is very important that you take part in these trainings to share information and create awareness with your staff. And then relating to good housekeeping, remove litter bins. Litter bins are very, very sensitive because this is where terrorists are likely to hide explosives. Litter bins. Remove litter bins during periods of heightened threat or using clear plastic bags as a temporary alternative. Using clear plastic bag that you can see even without opening the package. And then special bins that direct blast away from people are also available. Use of compactors to reduce the volume of stored trash compactors. And then particular attention should be given to areas accessible to public, exits and entrances, corridors, stairs, halls, and vestibules, reception areas, elevators, washrooms, any areas such as restaurants and coffee machines where staff come together. So patrols, monitoring, people coming together for lunch in a crowded area, there should be at least an earlier patrol to check that everything is okay before the lunch hour. There should be proper checks during shift turnovers when one shift is ending and another shift is incoming. These are some of the areas that you should focus on, you as a security manager, as a security supervisor. And then also, reception areas in particular are very sensitive. They should remain uncluttered. Clear lines of visibility, strong illumination, absence of bins, legged seats rather than armchairs that can conceal devices. All make reception areas less attractive to bombers. Good housekeeping includes the locking of areas when not in use and effective control over keys, ensuring that everything has a place and that items are returned to their respective places after use. Key control is very sensitive. Locking areas, patrolling during the night, confirming the janitor room is locked, GM office is locked, finance office is locked. These things are very sensitive, and this is the work of security, to patrol and to check and to ensure that the premises, everything is in order. We have closed all areas that are supposed to be locked. All keys have been returned to the security office. Check the occurrence book, check the key record book, ensure that these things are happening. And then also housekeeping and design. There is a close relationship between good housekeeping and basic building design. Buildings that have recessed doorways, horizontal window sills, shrubbery below windows, etc., increase the availability of terrorists to place an IED. This should be a particular concern with the security gatehouses which have walls or window or doorways that border public areas, especially when your door or windows border the perimeter or border another building, then it should be a concern. Tree canopies should be kept well above the ground, and the bushes should be selected and trimmed. Also, take note that as a security manager, ensure that you liaise regularly, network with other security managers. I have spoken about that many times, with security managers in the same sector or through associations such as ISIS, which may organize local seminars and invite specialized guest speakers. Direct access to specialized government agencies is recommended. When planning new facilities, engage with architects and designers. Consider issues such as locking, protective glazing, parking, building hardening, and the physical barriers that provide standoff are taken into account. And then also protection principles, resilience. Resilience is the adaptive capacity of an organization in a complex and a changing environment. Resilience capacity building is critical to organizations that may be direct or indirect targets of a terrorist attack. Resilience building. Resilience building. The indirect nature of a terrorist attack impact means that organizations should be prepared for worst case scenarios, and they should develop resilience plans to respond to disruptions. CPNI reinforces this message. Even if the likelihood of being directly targeted by terrorists is remote, the repercussions of an indirect attack elsewhere can spread right across the economy. And then also, we talk of protection principles, mitigation. Security risk analysis, the three components of risk are likelihood, impact, and vulnerability. In security management, we generally focus on reducing likelihood of adversary action by increasing protection and by reducing the chances of success of adversary action by reducing vulnerabilities. Emergency planning approaches risk from a slightly different perspective, recognizing that some sources of emergencies can't be mitigated, at least from the perspective of likelihood. The emphasis in emergency planning is on creating resilience and reducing the impact that the threat has on the organization. The emphasis in emergency planning is on creating resilience and reducing the impact that the threat has on the organization. And then also, the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, approach is based on the following. It is based on the following. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, approach is based on the following. It is based on one, mitigation. And the mitigation are actions involving lasting, often permanent reduction of exposure to probability of or potential loss from adverse events. Can also involve educating businesses on simple measures they can take to reduce loss and injury. And then P, preparedness, actions taken before an event to plan, organize, equip, train, and exercise in order to deal with emergencies that cannot be avoided or entirely mitigated. And then response, implementation of the emergency plan to deal with short-term effects of the event. Incident identification, emergency notification, activation and deployment of emergency teams, and evacuation of personnel. And then recovery, near-term and long-term actions taken to return the organization to pre-emergency level of operation, or in some cases to a new level of operation. So you as a security manager, you can take this example and you can implement it at your organization. You can implement it at your organization. Think of mitigation measures, think of preparedness measures, think of response measures should something go wrong, and then think of recovery. Recovery, how do we recover? How do we continue in business? Recovery is closely related to business continuity. Please take note of those, that model or that approach by the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, and you can learn from it and you can develop a very nice document at your workplaces. I would like to meet you in future at your workplaces and see the documents that you have developed in soft copy and also in hard copy, when they are well organized in cabinets, and this information people are being trained and records are existing and exercises are carried out, and everything is happening properly. This will make your organization safe from these threats of terrorism. And then also protection principles, contingency planning is a term that we should also put in your fingerprints and also on your mind. A range of plans will be necessary to deal with aftermath of a terrorist attack, whether the organization is directly or indirectly targeted. Do you remember we lacked contingency plans at the Westgate? Contingency plans at the Westgate were not very effective, and that's why we suffered a lot of mayhem and a lot of confusion, because we did not have adequate planning in terms of contingency. And then contingency planning means emergency plans, provides direction on how to deal with a terrorist emergency, ranging from the receipt of a telephone bomb threat to how to deal with the aftermath of a direct attack. The emergency plan focuses inwards, identifying tasks, resources, and personnel responsible for managing the direct effects of an attack. So emergency planning is very, very important. And then also we say the emergency plan establishes a formal structure responsible for steering the organization through the more strategic implications of an attack. Much of the focus is outwards towards stakeholder partnerships, establishing of contingency facilities, HR issues, ensuring the organization maintains the confidence of its customers, maintaining its financial well-being, communication, etc. Protection principle. Another protection principle is business continuity plan. So there should be an emergency plan. There should be a business continuity plan. These are some of the measures that should be. The security manager is well placed to be the custodian of such plans and to take on responsibility for the coordination of resilience capacity building. Resilience capacity building. A security manager should be in the custody of these plans, and you should, as I've said earlier, be well organized. Everything should fall into place accordingly. And then also another protection measure is the terrorism incident management plan. Two schools of thought exist in regard to the emergency plan. One is that organizations should develop generic emergency plans and populate them with incident-specific annexes. The other is that separate emergency plans should be developed for specific emergencies, the nature of which is so substantially different to standard emergencies that it requires a separate plan. I am of the second school of thought. There should be totally just a different plan for terrorism, for acts of terrorism, handling emergencies, because how we handle these emergencies is different. How we respond to these emergencies is different. For example, how we respond to a fire emergency, the instruction is to remove people from the risky zones and evacuate them to safer zones, which are usually assembly point. But for example, if we are in an marauding terrorist firearm attack situation, we cannot remove people from the risk areas of the building and take them to assemblies, because taking them to assemblies, we are gathering them together, we are creating a crowd, and when we are creating a crowd, then that is a target, and now we are creating again. So the second school of thought argues so well with me that each specific emergency should have its own separate plan and how it is handled. And then also topics to include in the emergency plan, for example, roles and responsibility, contact procedures for professional emergency responders, local contacts lists and call out procedures, security alert and operating levels, on the site emergency notification procedures, command, control and communications, telephone bomb threat procedures, evacuation for shelter in place and assembly procedures, cordon and control procedures, site plans, detecting hostile reconnaissance and response actions to suspected hostile reconnaissance, and then such procedures including floor plans. These are some of the topics that should be included in your emergency plan. So you can imagine the length of your emergency plan. It will not be very big, it will not be very small, but it should be an emergency plan that takes into account these procedures. How do we communicate? Where are the site plans? Where are the such procedures? How do we conduct such? how do we do these things? That one is also of great importance. And then also additional plans that can be included in the emergency plan is IED recognition overview, actions on discovery of a suspicious device, immediate actions in the event of an explosion. What do we do? Casualty, immediate management and rescue, location of emergency equipment, location of hazardous substances, immediate action in the event of hostage taking or shooter on sites, then immediate actions in the event of suspected hazardous emergency shutdown, etc. These are some of the topics that should be included in the emergency plan. I think you have taken note of something there. If you need additional more information, then you can liaise with me. And then another also protection principle is the emergency management center. Do we have an emergency management center? Do you have an emergency management center at your facility? It will be necessary to establish an emergency management center. It may be unfeasible to use the regular emergency center, as the management of an improvised explosive device emergency should be from outside the anticipated cordon or else in a blast-hardened location. If an IED has detonated, there is an active shooter on site, or the facility has been stormed and hostages taken, all require considerations of an off-site management center. The center may also serve as the emergency rendezvous and master point for professional emergency responders. Equip any off-site center with attention given to communication, access to essential information, personnel risks, and site plans, etc. Another protection principle is hardening the target. The extent to which a facility can be hardened against a terrorist attack depends on many factors, including nature of the threat, location, resources, nature and culture of the business, whether the facility is already constructed or at the planning and the design stage, etc. FEMA states that a major role in reducing the risk of a terrorist attack on a building site is design. Site design involves integrating general planning tasks such as building placement, parking, and site infrastructure planning with security needs. Distinctions between existing and planned buildings in this regard makes it very challenging to talk about target hardening. It is usually good to discuss this target hardening during construction stage when we are constructing these buildings. And now this is the responsibility of government site inspectors and government consultants who deal specifically with engineering and design from a security perspective. Also, protection principles, target hardening. When we talk about target hardening, we shall talk about existing facilities. And when we talk about existing facilities, we shall say building, financial, and logistical constraints can compromise the effectiveness of security measures. Budgets. Therefore, risk management of the vulnerabilities is necessary. And this normally takes the form of enhanced retrofit protection measures with screening procedures to ensure the legitimacy of staff, pool, or routine delivery vehicles. And then projected facilities. Ensure there is a scope to accommodate either sufficient blast standoff distance in the layouts or enhanced robustness in the building construction. Ensure the legitimacy of staff, pool, or routine delivery vehicles. Those are just some of the principles when we talk about target hardening. And then we also say location of the facility. Location of the facility is also a very important consideration. Location of the facility. If the facility is located in the urban sites, then facilities in urban sites are likely to be high occupancy density, with a little opportunity for setting buildings back to provide effective blast standoff. Examples are central business districts. FEMA warns that vulnerability to attack is most closely related to standoff, the distance between a target and the closest place to which an explosive device can be delivered. FEMA provides considerable good practice on how to make urban sites more physically resistant. And then we have open sites, maybe of campus layout. And in some circumstances, it may be possible to establish perimeters and vehicle checkpoints, especially if the facility is part of a privately owned business park. Good landscaping and multi-story car parks set back from facilities will increase resilience. And then we also see that there are other sites we call industrial sites, which are very sensitive because of hazardous material, will usually have strong perimeter and strict access control can be applied. Car parks ideally will be outside a central, more heavily protected core. And then also, apart from that, we also discuss protection principles, protection in depth, protection in depth. Protection and FEMA emphasizes the need for multiple consecutive layers of protective measures deployed in concentric cycles around an asset that needs to be protected. They start from the outer perimeter and move inward to the area of the building with the greatest need for protection. The layers are mutually independent and designed to reduce the effectiveness of an attack by attrition, e.g., each layer is designed to delay and disable the attack as much as possible. To mount successful attacks, terrorists must penetrate and overwhelm each security layer without losses in momentum or capacity. Please, on your own, read about the principle of protection in depth. Protection in depth. It is through layers, creating security through layers, so that the most vulnerable asset is in the middle. Most vulnerable asset is in the middle, protected by layers. You can have the perimeter fence, and then you can have the standoff distance, and then you can have the external of the building, doors, windows, and then you go to interior of the buildings, you find safes. There is what we call 3 lines of defense. This is another issue that we may need to discuss also in future in one of the webinars. The need for 3 lines of defense. What do we mean when we say 3 lines of defense? So these are some of the things that we need to keep discussing in future webinars if you will be attending. And then we say the principles of protection in depth also borders on the strategies of crime prevention through environmental design. This is also something that we should also read. How do we control crime through environmental design? Are very effective in countering terrorism. Protection in depth is more than just hard landscaping, and in some situations, what is required is more the ability to keep vehicles away from vulnerable buildings and less keeping people away. This is especially for the case in public settings. In this regard, CPNI, Critical Protection of National Infrastructure, has produced an excellent and well-illustrated publication entitled Integrated Security, a public realm design guide for hostile vehicle mitigation. If possible, I'll try to source for this publication and I can share with you if I get it. I left my hard drive at home, so I don't have many of the documents that I'm supposed to have here, but I'm looking for ways of ensuring that I am in custody of this very important information. And then also we say protection principles, location of critical facilities. Critical facilities must be located at the safest place inside the facility. If the threat side of the building can be established, it is a good idea to try to locate critical facilities to the opposite side of the building. At the design stage, this may also involve considerations to the orientation of the building to harmonize with a range of other factors, e.g., maximum sunlight, such as in image right. These are some of the principles. As you have seen, there is quite a lot that you as a security manager you are supposed to do in these plannings. There is quite a lot of things that you should consider. Uh, the the things that you should consider are so many to an extent that you need to have clear planning, you need to have clear direction also from your management, from your GM, and also from the other people who you work with to ensure that everything works in harmony. Also, remember there are other things that you also have to consider. For example, when we talk about some other aspects of this protection, counterterrorism protection measures, then we shall talk about being prepared. And when we talk about being prepared, we are going to talk about within the immediate area of a terrorist event. You will need to rely on police, fire, and other officials for instructions. However, you can prepare in much the same way you would prepare for other crisis events. For example, the following are general guidelines to be prepared in the event that you find yourself in the middle of a terrorist attack. For example, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of your surroundings. Always, as a security person, be aware of your surroundings. Number two, move or leave. Leave if you feel uncomfortable or something does not seem right. Follow your intuition. If you sixth sense, if you feel that something is not right, please leave that area. Take precautions when traveling. Take precautions when traveling. Be aware of suspicious or unusual behavior. Be aware of suspicious or unusual behavior. Do not accept packages from strangers. Do not leave luggage unattended. You should promptly report unusual behavior, suspicious or unattended packages, and strange devices to the police or security personnel. Learn where emergency exits are located in buildings you frequent. Plan how to get out in the event of an emergency. Be prepared to do without services you normally depend on. For example, electricity, telephone, natural gas, gasoline, etc. And then also work with building owners to ensure the following items are located on each floor of the building: portable battery operated radio and extra batteries, several flashlights and extra batteries, first aid kit and mutual and manual, hard hats and dust masks, fluorescent tape to rope off dangerous sites, areas, etc. And then also you have a big role to play. You have a big role to play as a security professional in counterterrorism. Whether you are working with the government forces or you are in the private sector, you have a big role to play in counterterrorism. And I can tell you, the more you study, the more you grow, the more you develop yourself, the more you place yourself in a better position to play this important role. I know most of you have not yet reached the stage of being security managers or assistant security managers. You are moving up the line. Don't lose hope. Work hard. Stay on the positive side of life. Believe that you will make it. And I'm sure and I'm very confident that one day you will make it and you will talk about these issues with authority. You'll be able to present your case to your top management and they'll be able to guide you accordingly. With those few remarks, we have come to the end of our course. We have come to the end of our course. I want to say thank you very much for taking your time to study with us. I believe over these several Saturdays that we have been together, you have learned something from Brand Institute of Forensics and Security. That is my desire, that you have learned something, and you are going to use this information to position yourself well and to grow in the industry. I congratulate you very much for making an effort to come back to school, and I urge you to continue. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Some of us, our students, drop out because of challenges with the fees, because of challenges at home, because of challenges with the work. Please don't lose hope. Talk to us. Talk to us. Talk to the chief principal. Talk to our other director, Mr. Crispin Tabu. Talk to Chief Principal Crispin Tabu. Talk to our other director, Fred Dula. Talk to Hassan Boya, who's a senior police officer in the government. Speak to us. Talk to us. We can see how we can support you until you complete our course. Our happiness is to award the certificate to you. Our happiness is to see you complete the course. So stay positive, stay on track, and let's keep moving and prepare for the exams. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. We will meet again in another forum. Bye-bye to everyone.